Warhammer 40K Darktide launched back in 2022, where I had originally given it a very negative review, but after a year I came back with high praise with all of the added polish and functionality. Unfortunately, that praise has gone right back down to negativity once again in 2024. You can see that I'm conflicted as it's been a really sharp up and down slope in terms of playability, fun, and mindless grind. A lot of players, including myself, were very excited because of how many awful games had plagued the market up until that point, masquerading as the next Left 4 Dead 2 or Vermintide 2, and to be honest, Darktide was, and still is, one of the only games that could actually compete with that intense horde survival sensation where others nailed but failed. This is not to say that it was a horrible game, nor was it a perfect game. It is a difficult and enjoyable game to play both with your friends and with a small portion of the community that is still playing frequently. But if you've played the game when it first launched and you've been through all of the events and content updates, if you could even call them that, you'd know just how much this game has returned to its original state when it was first released with broken promises and a severe lack of content. Because this and a lot of the other levels have a lot of reused assets. If your game updates and you're asked to verify your files for the 5th time, do yourself a favor and do not click yes when it asks you to, because it's a huge waste of your time and doesn't do anything to improve your overall performance. The biggest issue is the disconnections continue to occur as frequently as they did years ago. Nothing has really changed. It didn't appear that I could host a run without somebody or multiple players being dropped and even replaced at random intervals by other players because they could not log back in time due to this issue. Not to mention the update that forced crossplay down PC players' throats with console users, while giving Xbox users the choice to opt in or out, which is something that I really do not like to see, which is favoritism. I know this is more of a biased opinion, and I'm not saying it's true, it's just this is my experience, so take that as you will. When it comes to console gamers as a PC gamer in these types of games, I find them to be very negative, as well as whine and complain about things for no reason, while they have no real experience with real cooperative gameplay, where everybody has to be on point and would rather selfishly rush forward and ahead like they're playing Warzone or Black Ops, as they try to vote kick you from your own game. Take for example just last night, when farming Damnation to prepare for the Twins hidden difficulty mode, I was teamed up with a toxic 3-stack Xbox group. That was fine until the very end of the level. Everything was going fine until I picked up the MTX pack. I was currently playing a modified Zealot build, and it had Martyrdom on because I wanted to try out a tankier support build, and their coordination with the demon spawns was rather poor as they took their sweet time. But they had it in their heads that I was to blame for something as trivial as picking up the MTX pack, which can be used by anybody. There isn't any dedicated healer in this game that gives you bonus healing or anything. Everybody has their own form of support, so what was the problem? There was no issue, and I can only imagine it was their ego because I was playing a low HP build with Martyrdom for tankiness, not for damage, to get more uses out of my relic pulses, and I had dropped the pack at the entrance of the gate that leads to the exit of the level, of which they decided they didn't want to stand near as they huddled in a corner cursing me out and kicking me, which basically removes you from the match and removes all rewards you would have received at the end. It was only a standard damnation, and this didn't really bother me because I'm so conditioned with how much I play League of Legends, so that kind of toxicity is rather mediocre, and has happened a few times with PC players, but it's something that you never really see anymore because that was when the game was first released. It is still pretty underhanded that Fat Shark doesn't allow PC gamers to opt out of crossplay, and of course to prevent being kicked when the operation is successful and you're about to extract, especially when it is your hosted game. The game has very terrible visual cues for what you need to do on specific maps, but from what I've seen, the vast majority of players who are returning for this recent Machine of Gods update or simply joining a random match will focus entirely on the endless hordes of enemies for the new map Clandestium, rather than understanding that you need to get out of there as smoothly and quickly as possible for an Auric mission on Damnation. You can't even solo host because this isn't a game that you can play alone with the bots since they have some of the worst AI ever created. There will never be a solo mode accessible for you to play because of broken promises. Aside from the MTX, which is just a fear of missing out simulator and the most updated part of the game with a minor overhaul of the class like Veteran and a few nerfs to Zealots, the game has remained majorly unchanged outside of new weapons and since the last time I played, the very fun and engaging twin boss fights.
Don't they look desperate, brother? If only we could make this last.
You never changed, sister. Still playing with your food.
There's no flavour without sport.
A righteous battle, a glorious victory.
patches. There are no massive game overhauls or extensive map changes, and a lot of bugs that I experienced years ago are still in the game. The most current 15GB patch has only one new level, which again is Clandestium, which is virtually the only level anyone ever plays for new weapons. But compared to some of the other previous content like the twins, it's just pretty bland once you get into it about 15 times. Now, while I do have a lot of issues with the game, don't get me wrong, the game has always looked and sounded fantastic, be it with the visceral executions or the soundtracks that occasionally play, with well-voiced characters, customization of your characters, fighting through the hordes of monsters in the pitch black sewers to the icy forgotten tundra. This is a very fun and engaging game to play until you hit that end game where it just becomes like every other game, which is just a weekly chore at which it just becomes the normal unending grind for that elusive best in slot 380 weapon drop with the right blessings and perks, which is their way of roping you into hundreds of hours of grinding instead of offering a decent crafting system that allows for player creativity. They just want your player retention. I can't say that I hate this game, but I can't say that I really love this game. It's fun and intense, but I just hate the developers because they're so much more concerned with their MTX. I mean, just take a look at their Imperial Reward bundle, where they give you just enough Aquilia to prevent you from purchasing the latest full outfit bundle, and making as much money as possible from you while also promising content that will never be implemented, making it feel like wasted potential.